Welcome back to Old Guy REI. In my last video, I said I'm not trying to talk anyone out of real estate. And I meant that because I believe in it. My wife and I own rentals and we're counting on them to help us in our retirement. But today I wanted to get a little bit more practical, and I came up with a small list of things that I would like to have in place, or I would hope you have in place if you're thinking about buying your first or your next rental. Because a lot of the stress we felt wasn't from the property itself, it was from what we didn't have in place yet. And I think first on that list would be cash reserves, and probably more than you think. So not just a down payment, not just closing costs, but having some real reserves is going to save you a lot of stress, because something's going to break, and it usually breaks sooner than we expect. Most of the times, repairs don't come in one at a time. They stack up, and with each little repair, the stress builds up as well. So some things that you might ask yourself would be, if a $3,000 to $5,000 repair would surprise you and wreck your month, maybe you're not ready yet. But that's not an insult, it's just reality. The second thing would be your why. And I mentioned in previous videos that a strong why will carry you through a lot of the stressful things that are going to come up. And, for me, it was, it's kind of transitioned over the last few years. So when I first started out, it was because I didn't have retirement savings and I wanted to start building something before I got to retirement age, something that would help us in retirement. And then from there it shifted to at least wanting to be able to help my wife retire. And then if things go well, the next step would be for me to be able to retire alongside her. And so far, those reasons have been strong enough to carry us through. Also, in some of my previous videos, we share everything on this channel, and we've shared a lot of the mistakes and the lessons that we've learned. And there was a time, probably in 2024, where one of my first reactions was just to sell a property or sell them all because things weren't going right. And, my wife helped keep my head in the game, and I'm glad she did. Now we're going on year 6 since we started buying again. So definitely have a strong why. The next thing I would say you want to have in place before you buy a place, before you buy a rental, is stability in your own life, right? Financial stability and emotional stability, because if your personal finances feel tight now, or even a little bit unpredictable, then a rental really adds a lot of pressure. It certainly doesn't take it away. When we started buying rentals in 2020, I felt behind, again, because I didn't have anything saved for my retirement. And I felt like we needed the rentals to work right away. And, after a few years, came to the realization that they just need time. They need time to start. You need time to get them stabilized and optimized, and understand that it just naturally takes time. So I think that realization forced me to have more patience And now, we're going into year 6, and I understand, but we're older, and I really felt like I needed to build something quickly to help us at this point in our lives, because I'm 61 this year. My wife's going to be retiring in May, which I'm super excited for. But the portfolio is still pretty young, so it by itself can't really help us that much yet. We probably need at least a couple more years before we start seeing some real progress there. And there's nothing I can do about it, so I just need to be patient. I think the next thing to think about before you buy your first or your next property would be to stop believing in perfect properties. I don't really think there is such a thing. It doesn't matter if it's turnkey, fully renovated, or what the listing says. I think every property is going to need something. And we've had repairs show up as soon as we signed on the dotted line, right after closing. And that can be a little depressing at times as well. Being a landlord or owning a rental property is quite a bit heavier than it looks on paper. But I think if you just assume that things are going to cost more and repairs are going to take longer, because if it doesn't take longer or it doesn't cost more, then that's just great. But if it does, then you're ready. And then probably the next thing would be, like I just mentioned, stabilize, give it time. Because if you need that property to perform perfectly in the first year, then I think you're setting yourself up for a lot of stress and possibly failure. Because, tenants change, repairs happen, and other expenses show up. And like I said a minute ago, real estate usually gets better with time, but not instantly. If your timeline's tight, then that just adds to the pressure, and it can affect every decision you make, right? We talk about making decisions, not making decisions emotionally, because that can hurt you every time. Not too many people talk about that, but we think about it like a business. Try to make all our decisions with that mindset versus being emotional about everything. And since we started doing that, things have felt better in general. And I think the last one would be emotional readiness, kind of tied to your why. But, do you have the mindset that you can handle surprises without assuming everything is going wrong, like I did in 2024? Can you deal with having to do a repair or paying for a repair without it messing up your whole week? And can you stay steady when numbers fluctuate a little bit, because that will happen as well. And I think you understand now that rentals aren't just numbers. There's a big part of it that is mental as well. If every issue feels like it's a crisis, then things are going to get heavy right away. But if you can stay calm and solve problems, it feels more manageable. If I had these things in place before our first purchase, I think it would have saved us years of stress and most likely a lot of money too. But not because real estate doesn't work, but because preparation changes everything. And I also mentioned in my last video, and that's why I made a simple reality checklist for people thinking about purchasing their first or their next property. I'll put the link in the description, but it's something that I think might be helpful to a lot of people out there, something to help you be honest with yourself before you jump in. and definitely not to stop you. Like I said, I just hope that you walk in stronger than we did, because I do still believe in real estate. We're still doing it, but I don't believe in rushing into it any longer. And if you're thinking about buying, take a little bit of time. Make sure your foundation's solid first. I think that'll help you sleep better at night, and you'll be able to last longer in the game, at least long enough to see when things start to progress to a point where you understand that real estate can help you, whether it's time freedom or financial freedom that you're looking for. The more time in the game, obviously, the better off you'll be. We had a pretty short runway, my wife and I, but I think even with us being older when we got started again, there's still plenty of time to see the fruits of our labors. So I'll put a link here to the last video in case you missed it. It's the first video in the series. And then if you don't mind liking the video and subscribing, we appreciate it.